Hey everybody, my name is Zach Dixon. I am from Ivy Studio, which is a commercial animation studio based in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to talk today about real-time animation and using Unity to create a bunch of commercials for Nike. So when does real-time 3D save the day? So I was thinking about this. So maybe when the brief asks for tornadoes and earthquakes and lightning and dust storms, it might help save the day when you're 1 month into a lockdown in a global pandemic, first ever work from home project. It might help out when you have a 2-week-old newborn, which I did at the beginning of this project. It might help when you have to deliver 4 15-second spots in 3 different aspect ratios and 20 animated GIF stickers. It might help when everything is due in just 1 month. And all that together, it happens to be for one of our dream clients, somebody we've always wanted to work for, is a Nike project on a sneaker release. So before we get into the details, here's a quick process reel and a look at where we got to. So to set the stage, before we get into the details, a little bit about us. As I said, we're a commercial animation studio based in Nashville. I founded the studio with my partner, Sam Cowden, in 2012. We've grown a little bit since then. You can see all of our wonderful faces here working from home. We're small but mighty, as we like to say. We've got an amazing kind of full-time core group, but then we hire specialists on and scale up to kind of suit the brief depending upon what type of project we were working on. Our reel is playing right now. We've had the chance to work for some amazing clients like Bad Robot and Netflix and Amazon and Reddit, and now of course Nike. And as you can kind of see, we kind of range in a lot of different mediums and styles. And when a client comes to us, we're able to look at the job, we're able to look at a problem that they're trying to solve, whether that be for the message or for maybe some constraints like timeline. And we try and pick the right kind of style or medium of animation to really suit that brief and that message. So we don't have a style. We're able to do frame by frame or full 3D or something that's more design driven and motion graphics, maybe something a little bit more abstract or metaphorical or something more literal. And our full-time team is really well equipped to do this because we all have such different passions and skill sets and interests. And then kind of in addition to that, we've started to take our design and animation and marketing skills and starting to develop kind of our own brands and products. So this includes projects in all kinds of different spaces like tabletop, television, coffee shop, and most appropriately, a video game. We made our first video games called Bouncy Smash, and actually made that in Unity, and that was kind of our first experience in Unity. And so all these different experiences kind of come together to inform our commercial work. And in this case, it really helped us well, especially that experience making a video game as a studio really helped us out when we got a call to work on a job for Nike. So the brief came in, 3 sneaker drops, 4 athletes that wanted to do stylized avatars, put them in a low poly world, and the brief and the concept came out of this sentence. We want to put these players into a video game. And with that in mind, we kind of want to crank all of the ideas in these scenarios up to 11. So there'll be tornadoes and lightning and holograms dancing and destroying a small city, which are pretty crazy things for an animated project, and the turnaround was pretty wild. So to talk a little bit about schedule and some of our challenges, we have Rebecca, our producer, to tell you a little bit about that.
Okay. One of the biggest challenges of this project was the timeline itself. Nike had shoe release dates set in stone, and so we couldn't really move those. We had to work back from them. And so all in all, our total production time was from April 1st to May 8th. And the first shoe release was 3 weeks from that April 1st date. So we had to begin very quickly from April 1st on. Typically, our normal 3D pipeline timeline would be around 6 to 8 weeks for this type of project. But we were given almost half that time. The second challenge of this project was that because of the compressed timeline, we kind of had to skip over the pre-production phase of the project, which is very risky. Typically, we would do an entire storyboarding and animatic phase for 3D projects. But this time, we delivered, the very first thing that the client saw was a full fidelity first draft, which was a little scary, but ultimately, we made it out alive. Third challenge was the amount of deliverables required for this project. So all in all, it was about 32 deliverables, the main ones being those 4 videos, one for each athlete, and of course they were in a few different resolutions. And then following that, there was just several social assets that we were asked to create, including like GIFs of the players doing fun things or just stills that would help the agency build out some social material.
So with all this in mind, we've heard the brief, we've got the timeline, and right away, our experience in game dev and actually working in Unity made us immediately think, we want to put these players into a video game, we're going to use Unity to make this. So even on our first just kind of intro call with the agency, we had decided we're going to go all in on this. So we essentially in that first call presented the idea we're going to do this thing in Unity, and you could really hear it on the call, but later the agency told us, even before sending out our pitch deck, that was really the moment that we got the job. Because they're like, this is going to be perfect for this brief. So after that kind of initial call, we asked all our questions. We went back to win the job. So to win the job, we basically had to make at least one style frame and fully flesh out some storyboards and ideas around this. So to make the style frame, the first step was Michael, our art director, drew a quick scene. Then Max, our technical director, did a speed sculpt in ZBrush, added some rough textures. And then we bought a bunch of stylized low poly models that we laid out in Maya. We laid out a scene based on Michael's concept. And then we took all of those things and we put them into Unity. And here I got to work just in the playground that is Unity. Here we composited, lit, textured, we touched up the layout, moved a few things around to really fine tune the composition. We added fog, volumetric lights. We added effects like bloom and chromatic aberration, as well as post-processing like color correction and things like that. To really dial in the look, we really wanted a tune shading look, stylized lighting model. And for that, we turned to Toonie Colors Pro, which you can find on the asset store. It's an incredible asset and shader set. We use that for pretty much everything in the entire spot. This is actually the shader that we used on Bouncy Smash. So everything you're looking at here is Unity, except for maybe some very final touches in After Effects, which is kind of our go-to compositing program. There's some grain stuff I like in there, but really 99% of what you're seeing is look development in Unity. A quick look at just version numbers real quick. We used Unity 2019.3. Some key packages that we used were the Alembic package, because that's how we brought everything in. We used the post-processing package, timeline, and Unity recorder. And a fun fact, I did almost everything on Unity in this project on my 2017 MacBook Pro. Which, it's a decent MacBook Pro, but it's still a laptop. And it ran the project really, really well. We've got big PCs, but this was kind of first work from home experience, and I had a new baby, so I wanted to be flexible. And I was like, I'll switch to my desktop eventually, but really the MacBook handled it super well the whole time. So after making the style frame, we took the last step towards securing the job as we wrote expanded treatments for all 4 spots with storyboards. Sent that all off, and we heard back really quickly because we needed to get started immediately, and we got the job, and the first draft of the video was due in just about 2 weeks. So we got started immediately.
While they were working on the pitch, I was over in my corner working on the schedule. Originally, I approached it like a normal 3D pipeline, right? So I had everything kind of staggered out, like we had storyboarding, modeling, surfacing, rigging, animation, all of that. And so it was kind of just staggered out like normal. But because of the condensed timeline, we quickly realized that wasn't going to work, and we were going to have to be able to work on everything right at the same time. So every department working simultaneously with each other. And so the biggest issue with that was the avatars themselves, right? Because these models are based on real people, and that just had to go through a lot of approval processes, right? So we've got agencies signing off, Nike signing off, player management signing off, and the players themselves signing off on these designs. And so that production process was happening pretty much the entire production schedule from the very beginning when we started our first drafts almost up until final delivery. And Max, our technical director, is going to let you know how we did that.
This project was fast, which means everything needed to be extremely efficient, and we needed to get things into Unity as fast as possible. And so we just really centralized Unity in this workflow where everything would feed into it. And that allowed for some very quick iterative work. So a character workflow would be modeling in ZBrush, texturing in ZBrush, out to Maya for rigging, and then in Maya for animation within our actual layout scene. This works great, but we didn't have time to let it go through the entire process before seeing it in Unity, and we didn't have time for the steps down the line to wait for it. So the rigging and modeling team were amazing, and they were working together. They rigged on a base mesh initially, and then animators could use that base mesh for animating long before they got a model. And as the modeling was getting done, we were able to start seeing that in the animation side of Maya. But along the way, all of that stuff could feed directly into Unity, and we could continue to do look dev and compositing and lighting work long before any of those steps were done. And we were also able to do the same thing for the effects side. Using Cinema 4D, we got to quickly iterate and get things out into Unity. And so everyone could work on their own individual parts, and then in Unity, everyone could see how things were looking, which is really fun. And I think one of the key things here was that people could use any software they wanted to for any task, because at the end of the day, it was just being kicked out to Alembic or FBX and being sent into Unity. And there's so much software out there, and a lot of them are really good at doing a lot of things, but they're best at a small subset of them. And I think in this project specifically, we're able to utilize those best things that they do and work in. Like ZBrush is amazing at sculpting, Maya's great for character animation, and Cinema's amazing at getting some procedural stuff done. And once that got into Unity and was able to get rendered out, we could then add our 2D effects on top via Animate, and that was all brought together in After Effects for final compositing and finishing touches.
So for me, as a director and oftentimes compositor, I love Unity being this kind of central hub that everything comes to. It just gives me all these different tools that I can bring together at any time and work with at any time. And something that I've been learning a lot as a director is I think it's really easy to get caught up in a lot of tiny details, but I don't think the small finesse details are always what has the most impact at the end of the day. I think it's the bigger things like pacing and composition and camera angles and the action that happens within the frame and the lighting and the colors. So being able to all in one place and really, really quickly be able to entertain ideas like what if we played this shot in silhouette, or what if we used a wider lens here? These are a lot of things that might be fun to try out to kind of better suit a moment in a project. But a lot of times in a traditional workflow, that can be really challenging. You'd have to send it, back out to the layout department, or wait for renders to come back to see if it's going to work in your edit. In here, you can just try it and drop it right into your timeline and immediately see if some new idea that you're going to have is going to work, and ultimately make the project feel better. So as the director, I'm able to get answers to these questions immediately and ultimately be able to find new ideas that I wouldn't be able to find otherwise. And at the end of the day, I think that makes the project a lot better. I think one of the big challenges about using a new tool like Unity is getting everybody involved. Our art director, our on-staff art director, Michael, is a painter at heart. He really lives over in the 2D world, but I really wanted to make sure he was involved in this project because I really wanted to get his eye for composition and color on each shot. So because we were kind of working at full final fidelity, we worked out, I think, a great workflow is basically just sending each other screenshots multiple times a day via Slack. So I would send him a screenshot, and then he would take it over into Photoshop.
From here, I would pull these into Photoshop. Usually we would like to dedicate some time to the pre-production phase to create some rough color passes for Zach to use when he's implementing color and lighting in Unity. But with this timeline, we had to run and gun, so it ended up being a lot of the coloring and lighting after the modeling phase. Here's a look at the before and after of the image I was given versus what I painted over for Zach to use in Unity. I'm going to give you guys a quick little demonstration on how I approached this based on what Zach gave me. So the first thing I would do would be to separate Ben from the rest of the background. This just gives me, what I'm going to do is start breaking up the background into shapes and rough colors so that we kind of know where we're going with the scene. And that's what this is going to look like. Very rough, just start going through and adding small details to the background, like the sky with the gradient. The buildings, from back to forward, I would start adding more atmospheric haze, some lighting to give the street some life, and some more details to the buildings, like windows. Here come the final neon lights. These are the final tweaks that I'd be adding to the scene. Now, it's important to keep in mind that this isn't a final painting. This isn't a final look. This is more for a color pass for Zach to kind of base his lighting on. And next comes the electricity of the scene, the fun part. Add some extra lighting. Go back through and add some glow. And now that I know where my lighting is, I'm going to add some lighting to Ben with my clipping masks, and voila, this is where we're going to end up. And so this goes right back to Zach.
So from here, this is really all that was needed to get to the final look of the project. So I took Michael's sketch and his kind of guidance for lighting and composition, and essentially brought this into Unity and just started trying to match this look, setting up the fog and the colors and the lighting. And using this process, we kind of just developed back and forth really collaboratively throughout the whole project to hit the look. So this type of flexibility of working in real time came in handy immediately. We sent off our first look to the agency, and they were happy for the most part, but they basically had one big change. Everything is way too dark, way too moody. It looks a little bit scary. We need to lighten everything up. Traditionally, this might take days to turn around in a full 3D project because we'd have to go back, relight everything, render it, bring it into our compositing software, and kick it out. But in this case, it was quite easy. I just updated the lighting, which was linked to all the different scenes, and within a few hours, we were able to have a new draft out to them to kind of ease their mind with like, oh, here's a lighter look at this project. So really, same day, we were able to relight and render the whole project. Our technical director, Max, was tasked with solving probably the most difficult part of our brief, weather effects. We had tornadoes, and one of the videos required us to destroy a small city. So here's Max to tell you how he tackled that problem.
So for this project, we needed to destroy some buildings and create some stylized tornadoes, which was extremely fun to work on. We ended up using Cinema 4D for this because when it comes to non-destructive and procedural things, Cinema is one of the best. It is so fun to work that way and be able to quickly change parameters, quickly iterate on these things, and able to kind of hop back and forth between Cinema and Unity and start seeing things in shot and seeing what was going to work, because we weren't sure going into it what a stylized tornado looked like, or like how much destruction do we even need on these buildings. And using the Fields tab in Cinema, which is crazy powerful, allowed us to art direct a lot of this stuff on the fly and not rely on dynamics, which is a little more restrictive in terms of like, one, you have to calculate it, but two, just like I hope this is going to do the kind of destruction I want. So for this way, we could pretty quickly get a new building in, destroy it exactly where we want to at the exact time we want to for the music, and then kick it out to Unity and kind of keep going back and forth until we hit the sweet spot.
The final layer kind of sitting on top of this whole project then was the 2D effects. So we were able to kind of combine some of our more traditional animation skills with this brand new real-time rendering. And we basically just had a team of super talented frame-by-frame artists who started animating really early on top of our early Maya play blasts. And then as we kicked out final looks from Unity, we would send that over to them, and they would continue drawing on top of that. And then in the end, we took our renders from Unity, brought those into After Effects, and then composited these 2D effects on top. So it was a bit of a crazy month, certainly, but we did it on schedule. We did it on budget. The agency was really happy. Nike and the players loved it, and it seems like the fans liked it as well. It was definitely a crazy month. Definitely would not have been possible without working in Unity. So looking towards the kind of future of advertising when it comes to integrating real-time technology. One thing that's definitely already happening is the multiplication of deliverables. It's just going up and up and up, whereas it might used to have just been, we're just doing one 30-second spot, and that's it. Now it's a 60-second spot, 2 30s, 5 15s, and 10 5-second spots for Instagram. So many different platforms. We've got so many different aspect ratios, and one of the things that's nice is real time really helps us when it comes to kicking out to all those different platforms. The other thing I think that's really going to be really key with real time coming into advertising is the interactive possibilities. We're starting to get more calls about installations and augmented reality projects and VR projects and stickers, and even games that integrate with more traditional advertising, having a game element along with some more traditional animated spots. The other thing we're seeing more is more personalized or data-driven ads. So being able to plug in either real-time data or personalized ads where you're kicking out, think like 500 to 1,000 different versions of an advertisement. Something like that is going to be really aided by doing projects on a real-time platform. The other thing that I think is really exciting about using real-time for advertising is that smaller teams, I think, are just going to be able to do more. I think it puts more of the creative process in one place, and single artists are able to kind of realize their vision in a way that really wasn't possible before. So if you're out there and you're a commercial animator or a motion designer and you're thinking about starting to learn Unity or starting to integrate real-time technology into your workflow and your processes, there's a few things that I'm really excited about as these worlds of game development and animation continue to collide. I'm excited to see that unique perspective that I see a lot of my peers have and see what they're able to do, kind of bringing their heavy focus on art direction and design and storytelling, and of course animation. I'm excited to see what you all are going to do in the world of real time, being able to kind of seamlessly bring all those skills to real time applications like AR and VR or even games. There's a ton of crossover in our industries, and I'm really excited to see them come together more. My advice would be to maybe start small and leverage what you know. It can feel a little scary at first and like an unknown world, but really, like kind of as you've seen, you can really utilize a lot of the skills and tools and programs that you already know and just use Unity as one place for it. And then over time, use more. Like, for example, we didn't use Unity to edit this project, and that's something that we're going to look to do more in the future. So just start small, use it for the things that you're comfortable with. Another thing to note, we didn't no code was written to make this Nike project, so don't worry, you don't have to learn coding. The other thing I would say is Unity in real-time workflows is just another tool in your tool belt, is the way that we kind of look at it. We still examine every project and decide the tool set and workflow that we want to use on it. So we're still using Arnold and Redshift and Octane when a project calls for it. But Unity can be right when a certain project calls for it. So when should you use Unity in a project? Here's how kind of we're looking at it. You might use Unity when there is a tight deadline. Obviously, you pick up a ton of speed when you don't have to render and when you're able to iterate really, really quickly in one place. Another good opportunity to use Unity is when you can tailor the art direction for the medium. In this case, it was cell shading. So I think there are some art directions that are really, really appropriate to be using in Unity right now. I think that window will open even more as real-time ray tracing becomes more and more accessible. Another thing to consider when to use Unity is pixel perfection versus rapid iteration. So you may lose a little bit of that visual fidelity that comes with something like Redshift, but you gain that rapid iteration that lets you try out things that you might not be able to try out elsewhere. So you kind of got to weigh those two things. Another time where it might be really beneficial is when there's tons of deliverables. That really helped us out on this project. And then, of course, a big reason to use Unity, which I think we're going to see more and more moving forward, is when there's an interactive element, when there's something like a game or a VR or AR experience that you want to pair with a more traditional advertisement. Well, thank you so much for watching. Would love to answer any questions you have over on Twitter. You can hit me up at Zach Dixon or our team at Ivy Animation. Thanks so much for watching.